I thought my marriage was unbreakable, years of love, trust, and dreams built together. But one unexpected discovery shattered my world completely. The man I vowed to spend my life with was living a secret I never imagined, with another woman, in another city. I was blindsided, betrayed, and broken. This story isn't just about cheating. It's about how far lies can reach, how betrayal cuts deeper than any wound, and the impossible choice between holding on and letting go. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, this story will hit home, and maybe help you find your own strength. Part 1: The Perfect Life. Or so I thought. I always believed in fairy tales, in the kind of love stories where the prince stays true and the happily ever after lasts forever. When I met Mark, it felt like I had found my real-life fairy tale. We met in college, fell fast, and got married before we even graduated. He was charming, ambitious, and the most devoted man I'd ever known. Together, we dreamed big. We built a cozy home in a quiet neighborhood, painted the walls soft gray, and filled every corner with memories, from lazy Sunday mornings with coffee to late-night talks under the stars. Our friends called us the perfect couple. I was the lucky girl who had it all. For 5 years, our life was exactly that, perfect. Mark had a job that paid well, but he always made time for me. For us, we talked about kids, about traveling the world, about growing old together. Every plan felt so real, so unshakable. I trusted him with everything I was and everything I hoped to be. But sometimes, the brightest light casts the darkest shadow. One evening, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Mark with dinner. The house was too quiet, no music, no laughter. I found his car in the driveway, but the front door was locked. I called his phone, no answer. That night, my stomach twisted with a strange unease I couldn't explain. I stayed up, scrolling through my phone, until a message popped up from a woman named Elena. The words hit me like a punch. "Miss you already. When can I see you again?" My heart froze. I stared at the screen, disbelief turning into cold dread. I knew I had to find out the truth. So I did something I never thought I would. I started digging. Emails, secret accounts, hotel bookings under fake names. Mark's double life wasn't just a secret fling. It was a carefully constructed lie that had been going on for years. I was shattered. The man I loved, the life we built, all a beautiful illusion. The next days blurred into a nightmare. I confronted Mark, but he denied everything at first. Then, when he finally broke down, the truth spilled out. He had another family, another home, another life. I felt like I was drowning. Betrayal wasn't just an abstract pain anymore. It was the harsh reality I had to face every single day. Could I forgive? Could I move on? Or was this the end of everything I thought I knew about love? This is the story of how I uncovered the lies, how I fought to reclaim my life, and how I discovered that sometimes, the strongest love you can find is the one you give yourself. Part 2. For years, I believed in the life Daniel and I built together. Our marriage was my anchor, the solid foundation that kept me grounded through every storm. I trusted him with everything, my heart, my dreams, even the little daily moments that made life feel real. We had plans, vacations booked, a future that looked bright, but all that trust came crashing down in a single night. One text message, one secret I wasn't supposed to see. It was late. I was scrolling through my phone, waiting for Daniel to come home from work. Then I saw it, a message notification from an unknown number. But the preview was enough. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was unforgettable." My hands trembled. I knew it wasn't meant for me. My heart pounded as I hesitated, then opened the message thread. There were hundreds of texts, pictures, and plans for secret meetings. The woman wasn't just a fling, she was someone he was serious about. I sat frozen for minutes, disbelief sinking in. I wanted to scream, to call him, to demand answers. But something stopped me, maybe shock. Maybe the need to process the betrayal alone. I kept reading. The woman was someone from another city, someone Daniel had met months ago during a work conference. He'd lied to me countless times since then, covering up his absence with excuses. The worst part? He was talking about leaving me, about starting a new life with her. I felt like my whole world was dissolving. How could the man I loved so deeply turn into a stranger overnight? The next days were a blur. I watched him come home, pretending nothing was wrong, while I kept the secret burning inside me. I confronted him one night, tears streaming down my face. He didn't deny it. Instead, he looked at me with cold eyes and said, "It's over. I'm done." I begged, pleaded, offered to fight for us, but he was already gone, in his heart, and in his mind. I packed my bags and left that night, feeling both shattered and strangely free. The life I thought was forever had ended, but I had to find a way to live again. But that was only the beginning of the nightmare, because betrayal has a way of echoing, touching everyone around you in unexpected ways. And sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones we don't see coming. Part 3. Leaving Daniel's house that night was the hardest decision I ever made. Yet it was also the moment I took back control of my life. The air outside was cold and biting, but somehow it felt like a fresh start, a chance to breathe again without the weight of lies suffocating me. I found refuge at my best friend's apartment. She wrapped me in a hug, listened as I poured out my broken heart, and reminded me I wasn't alone. But even surrounded by love, the pain followed me like a shadow. Days turned into weeks. I tried to rebuild, piece by piece, but every little reminder of Daniel, the scent of his cologne on a forgotten sweater, the way he laughed at our favorite show, stabbed me like fresh wounds. I realized healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning to live with the scars. One afternoon, I received a call that shook me to my core. Daniel had been in an accident, a car crash. They said he was in the hospital, in critical condition. Part of me wanted to turn away, to never look back. But another part, the part that loved him despite everything, made me rush to his side. Sitting by his bedside, watching the steady beep of the machines, I felt a strange mix of anger, sadness, and lingering love. He was fragile now, broken in a way I never wanted him to be. And yet, the betrayal still burned inside me. How could I forgive him? How could I even begin to? The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Daniel woke up confused, the accident leaving him with more questions than answers. I stayed, helping him piece together the fragments of his memory. Sometimes, I caught glimpses of the man I once loved in his eyes. Other times, I saw a stranger. Through it all, I grappled with my own darkness. Was forgiveness possible? Could I let go of the pain that threatened to consume me? Or was this tragic chapter destined to define the rest of my life? One night, as rain poured outside, Daniel whispered words that stopped my heart. "I'm sorry for everything." Tears streamed down my face. In that moment, I realized the story wasn't just about betrayal or tragedy. It was about the raw, messy human struggle to heal, to forgive, and to find hope in the darkest places. But fate had one final twist in store, a heartbreaking truth that would test my strength like never before. Part 4. The night Daniel whispered his apology, I felt a tiny spark of something I hadn't dared to feel in months. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, the shattered pieces of our life could be put back together. But hope, I quickly learned, is a fragile thing. As Daniel recovered, the house we once shared felt like a battlefield littered with memories of laughter and love, now tainted by betrayal and heartbreak. Every room echoed with ghosts of the past. I would walk through the kitchen and see Sophie's empty chair, a painful reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my family. Daniel and I began attending counseling, trying to untangle the mess of emotions that bound us. It was exhausting. Every session unearthed wounds that hadn't fully healed. Every word dredged up buried pain. I watched Daniel wrestle with his guilt. I wrestled with my own feelings of anger and confusion. Sophie had disappeared after the scandal broke. Our once close bond was severed by betrayal, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be repaired. The silence from her side was deafening, and I couldn't help but wonder if she was living with the same guilt that clawed at me. Then came the hardest part, the pregnancy. The baby was growing inside me, innocent and unaware of the storm raging around it. Daniel wanted to be there, wanted to be a father and a husband again. I wanted to believe him, but every time I looked at him, I saw the man who had betrayed me, who had whispered secrets in the dark. The pregnancy wasn't easy. The stress, the sleepless nights, the constant swirl of emotions, it was all overwhelming. At my prenatal checkup, I learned the news I never expected. There were complications. The doctor's face was serious, his words cautious. I could feel the weight of his concern pressing down on me like a stone. I went home that day feeling more fragile than ever. The baby I carried was at risk, and the future I had dreamed of was slipping through my fingers. Daniel was there, holding my hand, promising to fight alongside me. but the fear in my heart was louder than his words. One evening, as I sat alone in the dim light of our living room, I found myself writing letters to the unborn child I might never hold. I poured out my hopes, my regrets, and my broken dreams onto paper, trying to make sense of the chaos inside me. Days passed. The tension grew. Daniel and I clung to each other, trying to mend what had been broken, but the cracks were deep, and the future uncertain. Then, one night, the unthinkable happened. The phone rang just after midnight. My heart stopped when I heard the emergency room nurse on the other end, her voice trembling as she told me to come quickly. When I arrived, the sterile smell of the hospital was suffocating. The doctors moved fast, voices low and urgent. I was led to a small room, where time seemed to freeze. Daniel stood beside me, pale and shaken. The doctor's eyes met mine, filled with a sadness I couldn't bear. There were complications. We did everything we could. And then, the world I had fought to rebuild shattered once more. Part 5. The silence that followed the doctor's words was suffocating. Like the air itself had been stolen from the room. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake Daniel until he could tell me this was all a terrible mistake. But all I could do was sit there, numb. As the reality settled in, our baby was gone. Daniel's hands trembled as he reached for mine, his eyes glassy with grief. I saw the pain etched deep into his face, but I couldn't find the strength to comfort him. My own heart felt like it had been ripped out and stomped on, each beat a brutal reminder of the life that would never be. Days turned into weeks, and the heaviness in our home grew unbearable. Friends and family offered condolences, but their words felt hollow, unable to fill the void left by our loss. I avoided mirrors because I couldn't stand to see my own reflection, a woman broken by betrayal, loss, and now, unimaginable grief. Daniel tried to hold on to me, to us, but the cracks in our marriage were too deep. The trust shattered long before, and now, with this tragedy, I wasn't sure if we could ever rebuild. Nights were the worst, the silence between us deafening, broken only by the sound of our own tears. Sophie never came back. The sister I once loved had vanished, leaving a gaping hole in my heart. I tried to reach out, to forgive, but the betrayal was a wound too raw to heal. Part of me wanted answers, closure, but part of me was afraid of what I might find. One rainy evening, I found myself driving aimlessly through the city, the storm outside mirroring the tempest inside. The rain hammered against the windshield as if the heavens themselves were mourning with me. I thought about the life we lost, the family torn apart, and the future that would never be. I stopped at a small park and stepped out into the cold night air. The tears came unbidden, falling freely as I let myself grieve, for the baby I never met, for the husband who betrayed me, for the sister who chose betrayal over blood, for the woman I once was, and the one I was becoming. It was in that moment of raw, aching sorrow that I realized something. I was still here, I was still breathing, and somehow, I had to find a way to live again. Rebuilding wouldn't be easy, forgiving might never come, but surviving, that was my only choice. Part 6. The days after that rainy night felt like walking through a fog, every step heavy, every breath shallow. Daniel and I drifted further apart, the silence between us growing into an ocean neither of us knew how to cross. We were two strangers mourning the same loss, caught in a web of betrayal and heartbreak that threatened to consume us both. I tried therapy, alone at first, then with Daniel, but the wounds ran too deep. The counselor's words, forgiveness, healing, moving forward, felt like distant echoes, impossible to grasp. How could I forgive a man who had chosen my sister over me? How could I heal when every memory reminded me of what I lost? One afternoon, as I was sorting through old photo albums, I stumbled upon pictures from before everything fell apart. Daniel's smile, so genuine and warm. Sophie's laughter, light and free. Our family, whole and happy. It was a cruel reminder of what betrayal had stolen. I realized then that holding on to the past was like clutching broken glass. The more I tried to keep it intact, the more it cut me. I needed to let go, even if it meant letting go of the people I once loved. I decided to leave the house, the place where every corner whispered betrayal and loss. I found a small apartment downtown, a fresh start away from the memories that haunted me. Daniel didn't fight me on it. Maybe he knew, too, that our marriage was a sinking ship. Living alone was terrifying and freeing all at once. For the first time in years, I was forced to confront my own thoughts without distraction. Some nights, the loneliness was unbearable, and I would call my best friend just to hear a familiar voice. Other nights, I found solace in the quiet, letting myself cry until exhaustion took over. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects, deadlines, anything that could drown out the chaos inside my head. My colleagues noticed the change, the way I kept to myself, the occasional hollow smile. No one asked too many questions, and I was grateful for the space. But grief has a way of sneaking back in when you least expect it. One morning, as I was heading to the office, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry, can we talk?" It was Sophie. My heart stopped. For a moment, I debated ignoring it, refusing to give her the satisfaction of reopening old wounds. But something deeper, a flicker of the sister I once loved, made me reply. "When?" We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe, a neutral place where I could keep my guard up. As I waited, my mind raced with questions. Was she truly sorry, or was this another lie? When Sophie walked in, her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands trembling. She looked smaller somehow, broken like me. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It started as a mistake, but then it became something I couldn't control. I'm so sorry for everything, for betraying you, for taking your family apart." Her words hit me like a storm, shaking the foundation of my pain. Forgiveness felt impossible, but I realized that hearing her out was part of my healing. We talked for hours about the past, about the lies, about the emptiness that followed. She told me about her own regrets and the loneliness she felt after Daniel left her too. Two women, broken by the same man, trying to piece together their shattered lives. That day didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the betrayal or the loss. But it was a start, a painful, fragile step toward understanding. As I left the cafe, the weight on my chest felt just a little lighter. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time, I dared to hope that someday, I might find peace. Part 7. The fragile truce with Sophie did little to ease the ache in my heart. Every day was a battle to reclaim myself from the ruins of betrayal. Yet, with every sunrise, I grew a little stronger, learning to live with the scars rather than letting them define me. Daniel was a ghost in my life now, unreachable, absent. Our divorce was finalized quietly, as if erasing the past with a single signature could erase the pain. But I knew healing wasn't so simple. It was messy, slow, and filled with setbacks. Some nights, I'd find myself staring at the ceiling, haunted by the silence where love once lived. Other nights, I'd cry out all the tears I'd held back, sobbing until exhaustion took me. I wasn't the woman I used to be. I was someone new, forged in fire and heartbreak. One evening, as I walked home through the city streets, I saw a small art gallery hosting an exhibit. The vibrant colors and raw emotions captured in every painting called to something deep inside me, a part one had buried beneath years of pain. I stepped inside and was greeted by the artist himself, a kind man named Michael, whose eyes held a story just as complicated as mine. We talked for hours that night, sharing pieces of ourselves through words and silence. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt a connection, not of love, but of understanding. Michael didn't try to fix me. He didn't offer empty promises or quick solutions. Instead, he showed me that beauty could rise from brokenness, that life, no matter how cruel, could still hold moments of light. Our friendship blossomed slowly, a delicate thread weaving its way through my fractured world. He encouraged me to paint again, something I hadn't done since before the marriage. Each brushstroke was a release, a way to channel my pain into something tangible, something real. But the past was never far behind. One afternoon, I received a call from Sophie's number. My heart pounded as I answered. "It's Daniel," she said, her voice trembling. "He's in the hospital. Car accident. It's bad." I didn't know what to feel. Shock? Anger? Pity? The man who shattered my life was now lying somewhere between life and death. I went to the hospital, stepping into a sterile room where Daniel lay unconscious, broken in body and spirit. The years of bitterness and pain threatened to overwhelm me, but looking at him, so vulnerable and fragile, stirred something I thought was dead. I stayed by his side, watching the machines beep steadily, waiting to see if forgiveness could find a place even here. Days passed, and Daniel finally woke. His eyes met mine, filled with regret and sorrow. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything." I didn't know if I could forgive him, not yet. But in that moment, I realized that sometimes, forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of anger and pain. Leaving the hospital, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift. The journey wasn't over, and the scars would remain. But I had found a way forward, not through denial, but through acceptance. My story is one of betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, but it's also a story of strength, resilience, and the quiet power of forgiveness. Because sometimes, the hardest battles lead to the most beautiful victories. Part 8, The Shattered Silence. The weeks after the confrontation felt like a blur, a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Daniel was gone. Sophie had vanished from my life like smoke in the wind, and the house that once echoed with laughter was now suffocating in silence. I tried to hold on to the fragments of my shattered world, but grief was relentless. The baby I carried was my only tether to hope. Yet even that was marred by the constant ache of betrayal. Every kick reminded me how fragile life was, and how easily love could be broken. One cold morning, I woke up with a sharp pain in my chest. At first, I thought it was just anxiety, the aftermath of months of emotional turmoil. But the pain worsened, spreading through my ribs like wildfire. I called for help, but the ambulance was too late. The doctors said it was a heart attack, rare for someone my age. But the stress and heartbreak had taken a toll no one saw coming. I lost the baby that day. The grief was unbearable. The loss of my child was a wound deeper than any betrayal could inflict. I couldn't bring myself to hate Daniel or Sophie anymore. I just wanted peace, a sliver of the life I once dreamed of. In the months that followed, I moved away from the city. I found a small apartment by the sea, where the endless waves seemed to wash away the pain bit by bit. I started painting again, letting colors and brushstrokes be my therapy. One evening, I received a letter. No signature, no return address, just words on paper. "I'm sorry, I never meant for any of this to happen. You deserved better. I hope one day you can forgive us." It was from Sophie. I read it over and over, tears blurring the ink. Forgiveness felt impossible, yet holding on to anger only chained me to the past. I folded the letter, placed it gently on my desk, and looked out at the sunset. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing: I was still here, still fighting, still breathing. And sometimes, that's enough.